Welcome back to Personal Selling Weekly. Today we will discuss how you can actually design the perfect sales training program for your organization. And it's provoked by an experience I had last week where I discussed with a new potential customer in Japan. And I was just reminded again that how do we actually do this in an optimal way? Because very often the first question I'm asked when I show up for a meeting like that is, can you teach our salespeople to handle objections? Can you teach them how to close? Can you teach them how to negotiate? And of course I can say yes, but I think it's the wrong place to start, because it's really about what to do. I would like us to start the discussion in a very different place. So instead of discussing skills and tactics, I would like to start at the end, defining what is it that you would like to be able to create as a consequence of having had this program, and then reverse engineer the whole structure and the content from that endpoint. So the questions I often start with when I have meetings with potential customers is not what skills do you need, or it's a very different question. I start out by saying, would it be crazy to expect that the experience your customer is having with you when you interact with them have an impact on your business long term? And then 19 out of 20 sales directors say, yes, of course. And then I have this simple follow-up question. I simply ask them, so let's say that we do the perfect program together, and it just gives you everything you want. And we then in 1 year's time meet up with one of your customers. And I ask that customer, what do you experience when you interact with this company? What would you like the customer to say? So what is it the accumulated experience you would like to be able to generate for your customers? The experience that you would expect will lead to them wanting to work with you more and more. And when I ask this question, it's not always easy to find an answer, because it's not that normal, this question. And a lot of managers haven't really been thinking about the experience they want to create for the customers, because it's much more normal to start out by focusing on, we need to grow this business by 20% and bring in another 100 million in revenue. And so that's where they are focusing. But again, knowing that you want to grow your business with 100 million doesn't give you any useful information about the mindset, the behavior you want to drill into the sales organization. But if you know with certainty and precision what kind of experiences you want your customers to have when they interact with you and your organization, now you have some very useful information which we can translate into actual training content. Then you could ask me, so, well, Henrik, how would you define a great customer experience? And the answer is, I won't. I want my customers to define that, because I don't think that this experience is necessarily the same in every industry. I have seen some overlay from industry to industry. I think one of the things that most customers value when they interact with a providing organization, a company, is that they are met with people who have an interest in their needs and desires. That they have this sense that they are interacting with people that actually listen and want to understand what they are saying. That they interact with salespeople that are not just delivering what they're being asked, but take some time to go a little deeper and understand what the customer really want and need. And they also, I think, very often expect that they meet with people who are skillful, who actually know something about what they're selling. I would also expect that most customers like to meet salespersons that are passionate about what they're doing, not just professionals. But where you meet people who actually believe in what they're selling. So there are a number of things that need to be in place. I think which often comes up is that they have this sense that they meet with a person that's actually present and focusing on them and nothing else when they interact with them. So these are some of the things that often come up when we dive a little deeper. So when we discuss sales training, before we dive into the actual design of the actual training, there's the whole frame around the sales training we often spend some energy focusing on. Because I know that even though we are maybe some of the best sales trainers in the world, we cannot change behavior in 2, 3, 5, 10 days, even though we do everything in our power to make that happen. The changes you want to see in your organization only happens when they are backed up in the daily leadership practice. So when we talk about how to design the right sales training program, it's very seldom that we are not also discussing how to design the most supportive leadership training program. Because it's you as a sales manager that will either make a training program successful or not, by what you do with your salespeople before, during, and after a program. And we have seen it again and again. We have been doing really good sales trainings, but then management's focus shift, and then everything is wasted. We have also seen the opposite, where we have done training and the leaders really stay focused and engaged, and there we just see significant improvement very fast. So sales training is not only about sales training, it's also about sales leadership training. And when it comes to training, we basically think about training on different levels. There's training on what you could call the ontological level. It's really about helping each individual coming home to themselves so that they can show up as themselves when they interact with the customers. I think that's critical if you want to create good experiences for your customers, that they feel that they're actually meeting with a human being. And then until that, we build different kind of skills, strategies that help the salespeople actually become more effective in how they interact and communicate with the customers. And some of the things which often come into play is how well they're able to actually elicit information, how well they're able to read the customer, listen to the customer, how well they do high quality questions, how well they're able to create rapport with the client, and how well they are able to work time in the way they interact with the customer. Because sometimes it's useful to bring the customer mentally into their past. Sometimes you want to bring them into the future. Sometimes you want to bring them into the present. This is what we call now time sliding. So there's a lot of skills you want to build into a program. But depending on the starting point, depending on what skills are already there, and depending again on the experience you want to create for your customers, programs can look very differently. What often surprised me is how surprised our potential customer is when we say that we cannot do this in 2 hours. I think most organizations have unrealistic ideas about what it takes to change mindset and skill set in a whole organization. Everyone accepts that it takes 5 years to become an engineer. But to become a good salesperson, the thought of having to invest more than 2 days is just unheard of. And I don't know how it's so difficult to come to believe that you need more than 2 days to really create an impact. When I was a sales manager myself, working in a global organization, we invested 5 days a year, 3 years in a row, so 15 days per salesperson. And we saw results. We saw fantastic results. I have never seen a program lasting 2 days creating significant transformation in an organization. Sorry to tell you. But again here, instead of me talking to you, maybe just do some thinking yourself. And think about an example from your own life, where there was a new thing you wanted to learn and master, and then you just read 200 words about it, and then you were able to do it. No, you're right, it didn't happen like that. If you want to acquire a complex skill set, it takes practice and training, and very, very often having a good mentor or a good teacher can really accelerate this process for you. I think that's why sports teams pay high price to get the right trainers, because they know that the right trainer can actually help you to not only practice, but practice well. And I had this quote that, practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice make perfect. And I think this is the space we allow people to step into when we do our trainings. But the perfect training is not enough. You also need a certain number of hours and days to really, in a way, make it efficient. So when it comes to designing the right or an effective sales training program, you need to start with the end in mind. You need to go to really understanding what kind of experience do you want to create for your customers. And then knowing that, you can take a step back and ask yourself, so what mindset do my salespeople need to have to be able to create that kind of experience? How do they need to interact with the customers in those meetings to create that experience? And then you can go back and say, wow, among all of what's needed, what's already in place? And when you know that, now we can start to discuss how to close the gap between what they already master and what you would like them to master. And in that discussion, we can discuss what kind of strategies, skills, and things we need to add into the program. And that's basically how we do it. Very simple. So you can say that we are basically using the satisfaction selling strategy to design satisfaction selling trainings. Simple life. Not an easy life, but a really rewarding life. So I hope this episode today have inspired you. And I know that we are almost at the end of the year, and most likely right now you're focusing on closing the year, getting the right numbers. And I totally get that. But what maybe you could do is take a few minutes and say, what is it that I would like to teach my salespeople here in beginning of the next year, so that in 1 year from now, we will really be ahead. Because we are not trying to fix what we should have done in the beginning of the year at the end of the year. And if you want to have that discussion with us, I will be more than happy. So have a great week until we meet again next week.